set up my own business, worked as a tour guide, which I've never done before. I've done that for 6 years altogether. So the plan was always to work as a tour guide to make some money, to build up my marketing on the site. And once, the marketing gets more in volume, I can then decrease the volume on the tours. And I knew the tour guiding will be something for a few years because it's a tough job. It is utterly hard. It was brilliant because I got to learn so much about Scotland. I traveled most of Scotland. So it's about 80% of the country that I've traveled and been to several times over. Especially doing whiskey tours at some point, but still do round trips with groups from Switzerland and Germany and Austria. I went to Shetland more times than I can count, and so it's been brilliant to get to know the country. But I also knew once the marketing gets more and once the tours are getting a little bit repetitive, I needed to go out, because I think people can tell if you're not in it with your heart anymore. And I didn't want to be one of those tour guides that they can tell, oh, he can't really be, he's not interested in telling the stories and listening to our questions and answering them. So yeah, after 6 years, I basically switched over, did the marketing full time. My clients were happy to have me back in the summer, because obviously mostly in summer I wasn't available, although they did like it because I got so many whiskey orders, like, oh, if you're going to Islay, can you bring me some of that limited edition, and can you buy me that bottle?
That's a great
so they did. They definitely did benefit from that, but so it just kind of all fell into place from the start when I moved here. And I work with small businesses because coming from that corporate background where everything is just about the next revenue forecast, where everything is about money and numbers and the shareholders rather than the customer. And I was always amazed how many people in the business, and it was a few hundred people, didn't even understand where their money was coming from. Like, they were complaining about other marketing making 10 people call and complain about the direct mail they've gotten. They weren't taking into account that, well, we've direct mailed 80,000 people and you only got 10 calls, which is bloody annoying. I do understand that, but it's where the money comes from. We have to listen to them, to give them what they want and what they're looking for, not just blast stuff out, and not just kind of be annoyed when they have the audacity to get in touch. So small businesses was always what I wanted to go back to. And I think that's pretty much it in a nutshell. I've been doing this for 10 years now. I have just celebrated my 10-year anniversary in early March. So that is almost, thank you. It's I can't believe it, really. It feels so much longer and shorter at the same time. But yeah, so this year is, in spite of all what's happening, it's just now obviously with the lockdown, but I'm celebrating a little bit with little bits and pieces. I got a new logo last year. I got a new website earlier this year. And yeah, now my first podcast. So yeah.
That's great. Well, I think it's so interesting what you say, because when you chat with people about their business story, you do get the odd person who always knew that they wanted to have a small business. Like, that was their thing. They knew growing up they wanted to work for themselves. And I'm kind of the same as you. It's sort of, it happened very, I don't want to say sporadically, but it was a slow process. It was kind of finding things that I like to do and using bits of my education and bits of my background, and somehow that sort of morphed into a business. But it's always interesting to kind of to see where people come from and how that happened. And I loved what you said about the business coach, how he knew right away that that would be a good fit for you, but he wanted you to come to that conclusion yourself. And I think maybe that's the biggest part of it. Nobody can tell you you should start a business. You need to just come to that yourself, either through experience or jobs or just trying different things. So that's really cool.
Yeah, it's also, I mean, let's be honest, it is tough. It is a really, really tough thing to do. Moving abroad for one side, but also on the other side, it's running your own business is not easy. It's fun, and I wouldn't change it for the world, but it's not easy. If you don't do it because you want it, it makes it even harder. I mean, I was freaked out of my ears when I moved to Scotland, literally selling everything and flying over here with a one-way ticket. And my adrenaline levels were way high. So definitely the few months before I moved here, and then the first month here after, because I was completely on my own. I knew a few people, but that was it. But I still knew that this is what I wanted to do. And if you don't have that conviction, that makes it really, really hard to pull through the hard times and the tough times, I think. And makes it even cooler to celebrate the successes because you've done it yourself. This is all you. And it was funny when the coach was just, and after that as well, he said he most enjoyed working with me because I was the first person he worked with that actually wanted this. Because as business coach, he was working with managing directors and CEOs who've been told to work with a coach. I was one of the few people he worked with that actually came up and said, yep, I need help, let's do this. So he was really, really quite grateful. But yeah, he must have had the patience of a saint.
Oh, not at all. But you know, that's something that I never did. I never worked with a business coach, and I see so much value in that because I think for myself and probably for a lot of people, it's really hard to kind of, maybe generally what direction you want to go in, but if you don't have anyone to guide you, you kind of tend to move all over the place rather than find your path. And so I think that's such a valuable, and good for you for knowing that that was a good idea and starting out with that from the start rather than, I think most of us add that in kind of later in the journey when we're already we've already made loads of mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, I always just thought, okay, I'm going to try this my own way, and if it doesn't work, I've given myself a time frame. I've said if I haven't managed to move to Scotland and find a way to do that in X amount of time, I'm going to need to get help. And that was the main thing, because there's only so much we can do, and another point of view makes things so much clearer often enough, and that's the same for running your own business. Sometimes having a mentor, for example, helps us all. Just somebody who comes in from a point of view that isn't involved. It's our business, it's our baby, so we think about it completely differently. And if you get somebody else seeing it and shifting your perspective a little bit, then that is the best thing you can do sometimes if you can't find a solution on your own.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I'm really bad for that, where I know it's business and you're supposed to separate business and personal, but you're right, it's our baby. And when it's something creative, I don't know if it's possible. I don't have it in me to keep that separate. So I find that quite a lot, having somebody else's point of view that isn't emotionally invested in it, having a total outside perspective. Because even today, before this call, I spent my whole afternoon working on my website. And I have two websites for my two different brands. And the one website I was reading wording going, oh, I really like that sentence. I don't want to cut it out, but actually it's too lengthy. And you're trying to kind of go with what you like and ignore that and try and think more about your clients and your customers. And that's hard to do.
Yeah. Well, although to be honest, I don't think, especially small business owners, and that's one of the ways I'm doing marketing, is you can't cut out, and you shouldn't cut out your personality and your interests, because it's based on you. Yes, you might have staff at some point, or no, you might have some people helping you out, but it's still your idea that guides the whole direction, that gives it direction. And that's often enough. I mean, look at me. I'm in Edinburgh. There's lots of small business marketing consultants. We all know each other, funnily enough, and we all know there's lots to go around. So there's not that much competition, which I quite like. But we also know that it's just personality sometimes. You just pick people. Obviously, in your case as well, I look at somebody's photos and then either I like their style or I don't. And then I talk to somebody and either we click or we don't. Which doesn't mean that they're not as good at what they do. But you will always look for somebody who clicks with you. And that's the main thing. Your personality should be in your marketing and should also, basically your choices should be based on it. I tell quite a lot of my clients as well when they say, oh, I know I should be on, insert social media channel of choice. And then you say, why? Just why? Yeah, but everybody is there. And just, yeah, but if you're not good at something, then you're probably not going to get much results from it either, because you're just pushing yourself. You're not going to enjoy it either. And I still think that we should you have to do marketing. There's no way around it, but it doesn't mean you can't find a way to enjoy it. So for example, if you're more of a visual person, you can do a blog with images or with photos or anything. You don't have to write if you don't feel like writing. Or no, you can always find a little bit of a twang or a twist on what others are doing on social media, on Instagram or on a blog or something like that, and just give it your own little color, your own little personality to it. So pick what you like, because you'll be better at it when you enjoy it. And just, it doesn't need to be what the others are doing, or it doesn't always need to be the same, and also the same way what the others are doing. So it's, your personality is important, and that is what makes small businesses so nice to work with, I think.
Oh, I think you're right. I also have a bit of a background in marketing, and weirdly enough, I also studied journalism. So that's my degree's actually journalism. My first job out of school was as a community journalist for a weekly newspaper, and I very quickly realized that I wanted to write features, and I wanted to, the type of writing I wanted to do would have required years and years and years of doing the type of writing I didn't want to do. So I kind of moved more into the marketing side of things, and then left that to do photography. But I was the same. I always worked with arts organizations or nonprofits or small businesses, because what you said about the corporate world, it just wasn't for me. I didn't want it to be about numbers and, you know, as you're saying, keeping a board happy and keeping shareholders happy. I wanted to work with people that cared about their community and their clients, and the, you know, so much personality in what they do, rather than these big companies that are sort of faceless. And that just never interested me. So it kind of makes sense that that's what I do with the photography as well. And now you've done that with your own business as well. You like to work with other small businesses, and I can't ever see myself moving away from that. I don't have any aspirations to do corporate work or big ad campaigns, or it's just my heart's not there.
Yeah, it's the same here. I mean, I could make a lot more work if I went to the corporate market. I could charge through the roof for my hourly rates and daily rates, but that's not why I'm in it. It's, I mean, no, and we all know, and we've learned over the past few years, both of us, that you can make money without that being your main goal. If you're if you're in it for the money, that's fine. And if you enjoy that kind of thing, that is absolutely fine. But for me, it was definitely I like listening to small business owners, finding out what makes them tick, and how they, you know, how they want the business to be perceived, what they want to be known for, and then just help them get it out there. I'm not a person who goes and then does the marketing for them. I do it together with them, because I like their idea, and I need their perspective and their expertise as well, because I bring in the marketing expertise, but they obviously know their customers best, they know their industry, they know everything. I can't do it without them, and I'm just helping them. So whenever somebody comes and just say, oh, I don't like marketing, but I have to do it, can you do this all for me? And just wants to push it over to me, it's just, this is not how this works. Because I would do it my way, but we have to find a way that reflects your way to run the business and to, you know, do your business. And that's the main thing. And big corporates are just, it was nice to learn on the job, but I don't think it gives you the flexibility and the creativity and the personality of it. Because, I mean, the big corporates that I know, and obviously the one I work with, they have values and they have mission statements and they have all these things. But I don't think that ever really trickled down into the, to the employees. If it's not being lived by the people who run the company, then how can you translate that into a campaign in the marketing department or in the sales department or customer service and all that? So it's just seems a little bit less. It seems harder to have a consistent voice, but also a personal voice.
And I think part of the thing, and perhaps this is another reason why we both like to work with small businesses, you know, coming from that kind of, that a bit of a journalism background or an interest in journalism anyways, it's the storytelling. And that's what I love about working with small businesses from a photography standpoint, or even like the wedding and family work I do. I'm telling stories with my photos, just like when you're helping people with their marketing, you're helping them tell their story and get it out to the world. And it's so interesting to hear these stories of how businesses came about. You know, you just shared yours with us. I love hearing those stories, how people, you know, some people planned it from day one, some people fell into it, some kind of had a windy path to get there. And that's so interesting that's the bulk of your work, to help people share those stories.
What I find most interesting about that is that when you look at people's websites, which is often what people first see of a business, if they, you know, look up, even after the networking event, for example, you would always look up, you know, their profile on LinkedIn or their website. And it's so funny how many people think, oh, that's not professional. So they just say, well, I'm a photographer, I do this and I do that, and click here and then you can find this, and this is my prior work. And it has no personality and it doesn't reflect really what they do. And whenever I tell them that this is not just what they allowed to do, like this is okay to do, but this is what they should be doing in order to set themselves apart from their competition. Because if everybody just says, well, I'm a hairdresser, or well, I'm a photographer, then how do we distinguish between you? So it's really, really important that it's really easy to make yourself stand out like that, because this is uniquely to you. It's your personality, it's your point of view. And it's also really, really necessary.